want to promote your business? Do you want to talk about your nonprofit organization? Do you want to talk about your culture? Introducing the online web TV, Afrique Today. Fogham. You can watch us live at the same time on 4 platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and using the Afrique Today app. Download our app today for Android or Apple. Promote your business today. For more information, go to www.afriquetoday.com. Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Le Covid-19 a fait perdre beaucoup de revenus aux entreprises. Aujourd'hui, les choses commencent à changer, mais les entreprises ont besoin de relancer leur business. Si vous êtes une entreprise africaine légalement installée dans l'État du Maryland aux États-Unis, si vous avez été affecté par les effets du Covid-19, le moment est venu de parler de votre business. Afrique Today, la web TV, vous propose gratuitement un semi-reportage sur votre business. Notre équipe d'experts viendra sur place faire un semi-reportage sur votre business. N'attendez plus et contactez-nous dès aujourd'hui au +1 571 612 04 96 et soyez le premier à recevoir un reportage gratuit qui aidera à booster votre business.
Afrique Today, the best of digital TV.
Gapbuster is a 501(c) nonprofit organization that assists students in achieving improved test scores, introducing them to leadership programs, college tours, and travel that they would not otherwise experience. Through supplemental education, enrichment programs, and leadership development training, Gapbuster develops well-rounded individuals positioned to excel in academic, social, and professional environments. Our motto is educate, elevate, and empower to inspire youth to be the future leaders through the power of education. Our programs have educated, enriched, and empowered the tens of thousands of children that have passed through our programs to believe that they can live whatever dreams they can envision for themselves. Our results are impressive and have proven that every child can learn and succeed in the right environment. In 2020, we have gone virtual with our programs and provided our students with a safe, fun, and enriching environment that they can learn, laugh, and thrive. We are grateful to the families that have entrusted us with their children and the community that has supported our programs and the many people and institutions that have believed in our work and continue to support our programs generously.
Peace and love. Welcome to African American United. I am your host, sitting in Darius A. Stanton with our brother, the Invisible Man, and the Queen that you'll introduce in a moment. Sitting in for Dr. Yvette Butler Eboa. Yes, and they are doing a marvelous journey to the motherland as we speak. African American United, representing us in Ghana. Yes, we're so excited and wish them all of safe and traveling, not wish, we will all safe and traveling mercy, and we give thanks and praises to all of our good and righteous ancestors. Before I introduce our queen, I want to talk to and introduce the brother who's a regular on the show, who's allowing me to sit in this chair today, my good brother, big brother and king, Invisible Man. Peace and love, my brother.
Oh, peace and love to you, Mr. Stanton. I'm glad you could sit in.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm such a fan of the program. You all do such an excellent job educating our community about the things that are transpiring here in the United States, on the continent of Africa, and around the world. And so today is no short in terms of the level of esteem with regard to the guest that we have today. This sister is dynamic at best. And she is a queen who hails from the city of Annapolis, which, by the way, is a sister city of Gambia. And so we are very excited about that. But this sister is an educator, both formally as a teacher, as well as informally, and the founder of what you'll be talking about today, Connecting the Dots, which is a community grassroots organization. In addition to that, she belongs to a host of other organizations. But today, we will have the pleasure of talking about something that was birthed out of COVID. And that is Okaru-Bisant Shule, which represents the Kiswahili Okaru-Bisant word, which is the continent of Africa prior to it being named by a Danish man, Africa. It is much larger than you see on the map, and it is much brighter than you see in history. And so we want to make sure that history not only is taught here about ancient Okaru-Bisant history, but all over the world. And to join us tonight, our very esteemed guest, Miss Monica Queen Amaka. Yes, Queen Amaka, Monica Lindsay. Welcome to African American United.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. What a wonderful introduction. I hope I don't fail your glorious intro there. And thank you for the pleasure of being here. I'm really honored to be a guest today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation about what we have to talk about.
That's right. Well, we're talking today. Women here and abroad. So first, giving homage to the folks, it's my pleasure to sit here in this seat because Dr. Butler and I, who is the general host, along with the Invisible Man every week on this program, is a dynamic sister. She is truly a queen. We met over 20 years ago when I was working with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Washington in Montgomery County. And the clubs that I had, she brought educational programming in with an organization that she created and still has running today called Gap Busters. And so they provided after school programs for the clubs that we ran in Montgomery County, and primarily educational enrichment. So she worked with children who needed tutoring. She worked with children who were accelerated students in leadership, in math and science. And in addition to that, she did the great thing that I think that we're working to do with Okaru-Bisant Shule as well, and that is to take children around the world, take them out of the United States and visit the islands, to the continent of Africa, Okaru-Bisant. So, I just want to pay homage to her and the organization African Americans United with the vision of bringing us together as a people all over the world. And so I definitely have to pay homage to her. There's another sister that we were hoping that was going to be able to join us, and she may be able to come on a little bit later out of the District of Columbia, the capital city of the United States of America. Her name is Dr. Rhonda Hamilton. She's a podcaster, but most importantly, she works in the field of mental health and trauma. And she has embarked upon a project, DC Healthy and Me, which is an emergency trauma center that will be built level 2 in the District of Columbia in Ward 8, to be able to provide the community with relief as it applies to trauma, from sexual abuse, from homelessness, from violence, grief, depression, substance abuse, all the many things that our communities are dealing with, and particularly in the inner cities. And so hopefully we'll be able to have her join us this evening. But until then, we get a chance to talk with this sister. So
So wonderful to hear about what all these queen mothers are doing. It's fantastic.
You know, we have to have a show about women. Let me just say that women are so dynamic. I was about to write a brother today, a young man whom I respect. I ran Boys and Girls Clubs for about 17 years in Anne Arundel County, in Montgomery County, in Prince George's County, in the District of Columbia, and in Baltimore City in the metropolitan areas. And and in that space, hey, there we go. I love it. So in that space, we got a chance to. I was watching his brother's comments, and he was calling sisters. It wasn't a negative comment, but he referred to the sisters as, bitchs, and I was like, whoa. So immediately I start writing, because I'm thinking, brother, call them queens, sisters, ladies, honeys, mummies, anything but a female dog, because there's nothing wrong with a female dog. So don't do that to the female dog, and don't do that to our sisters, right? Don't call them HOEs, don't call them BITCHs, call them something that uplifts them, give them the true honor. And even if, sisters call themselves things that they have no business calling themselves, let's lead by example, be men for domestic peace.
Uplift, yeah, not downtrodden, but uplift.
Uplift, exactly. So, we want to really encourage our sisters to be their beautiful natural selves as you are today. So thank you so much. Brother Invisible Man.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me from your perspective, as you see our sisters. Oh, there she is joining us, our sister, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton. We just talked about the wonderful work that you're doing, Queen.
Greetings. I'm listening. I'm not the only one. We're busy, aren't we? God bless you all. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so excited about having you. This is a joy for us. Let me introduce you to the folks here. Thank you so much to Afrique Today, the broadcasting platform that we're on. Joining us, the host who's here every week. I'm fortunate to sit in as host. This gentleman co-host, and he's consistent, done a lot of great work. The Invisible Man, he's got a platform, podcast of his own that he'll share with you all. But he's on the line, so I'll let him greet you, brother.
Yeah, that was the Okaru-Bisant Shule. I went to the website, and that was the background. So I didn't mean to make so much noise. I'm the Invisible Man, and I'm just hanging around, being invisible. So wait to get the conversation started.
All right, and also joining us is our queen, who founded the Okaru-Bisant Shule, co-founded, I should say, because there are a number of us. I happen to be a part of that initial group as well. And I tell you what, we're very fortunate to have these two dynamic queens, because I happen to be working with both of them. But one of the things that I'm so excited about in both cases, because I've been in the professional space, in the community, in government, in corporate America, as well as nonprofits. And in all of those spaces, I have never come across any groups like these groups that I'm working with that are focused on the mission, that put egos in the back pocket, that don't mind sharing the stage, don't mind sharing the mic, don't need to be in front of the camera. They want to do the work, and they're brilliant, and they're focused, and they're getting things done and accomplished. I remember when we started the Okaru-Bisant Shule early on, and we were having Zoom calls and meetings, and it was about 3 or 4 months in, and my wife said, because of course your significant other, wife, spouse, whomever is in the background hearing what you got going on, and she said, "You all been meeting for a little bit. When y'all gonna do something?" And I said, right now. And about in a week, by now, the website came up, everything went up, and we were off and running, holding class. We'll talk about that, but I did want you to meet our sister Amaka, who is one of the co-founders of Okaru-Bisant Shule. And she heard all about your program before you bumped in, working with a resident in the community.
Absolutely. Greetings, it's a pleasure to meet you. Greetings.
Same here. The pleasure is all mine. Wonderful work. I love it. Education in our children. How can you go wrong?
Absolutely. It is our duty, and you have to take it seriously.
Amen.
No doubt about it. So let's get into it. So the topic of today is, you know, the sisters, these queens that are doing phenomenal work, and we're really going to focus on the work that you all are bringing forward. You know, we're going to go with the root, right? So we have two roots here. The first root is the root cause of the violence and the pain and the torment in our community. It's if you have an opportunity, please, we're on every platform, so share this link, whether you watch this on Facebook, on YouTube, any other, you know, platform.
Roku.
You know, we're World Wide Web. Just, you know, share this. Subscribe to Afrique Today if it's the first time that you're viewing it, because the guests here and the content is very, very powerful. But we're dealing with the root here. And first thing is, in the root is the woman, because without the woman, there would be no birth. And without the Black woman, without the Alkebulan woman, there would be no humankind, right? Notice I said humankind, Humankind, right? And I'm speaking of the hue in our skin. There's a difference between that and human. But the root of civilization is the woman. And so we must first honor the woman. You know, we must give her and pay homage to the woman, because the woman is the one who takes, you know, the song says, it takes 9 months to carry you. So, you know, and there's some other songs, taking 9 months, baby. You know, I can get into it, but there are a lot of different, you know, tributes to the woman. But we want to pay homage to the woman of creation, you know, and this is scientifically proven. So we deal with facts on this program. And if you don't believe what we say, please, even if you do believe what we say, go check it out. You know, we are all critical thinkers here. And in particularly our brother, the Invisible Man. But the root, so first root is the woman. And that root then, you know, as you go from the woman, it's so important that we treasure and treat the woman, queens, as they deserve, you know, exalted, respected, if nothing else, because of the fact that they are mothers and have the potential to be mothers. And so we should see that, you know, the caterpillar that becomes the butterfly. Dr. Bruce Purnell says if we treated everybody as a butterfly, you know, and not the caterpillar, it'd be a whole different story. But moving on to the next root. The next root is our ancient African history, our ancient Alkebulan history. You know, in the continent of Africa, in most nations, the education system there teaches the history, not of the native land, but of the colonized people. So in countries that that were colonized by French, the history books start when the history of the colonization took place. And then from there, it goes on. It does not go into the ancient history. When you think about the pyramids, you think about math and science. When you think about Mansa Musa, the wealthiest man in the Mali tribe and the country, you know, when you think about all of that, I mean, we could go on and talk about, you know, the history, but it doesn't represent us and give us, you know, who we are. When you think about when we were growing up, we're all relatively in the same space. We thought about, you know, Tarzan. They showed us with Tarzan and pygmies, and that was it. You know, you didn't see any of the other greatness of us, just the wild, right?
Yeah, us as scholars, as educators, as holders of knowledge, holders of wisdom, medical influence, none of those things appeared. And they also claim that we didn't have writing, so, which we know that has been debunked.
And, you know, they talk about we were uncivilized when we are the mothers of civilization, the fathers of civilization. The first university, Timbuktu, came from us, right?
Yes, absolutely. And there were other universities as well throughout the continent, you know, Timbuktu, as well as others, areas of education. So we have to definitely teach that. It is our duty to share that knowledge, because it certainly isn't being tackled in the education system.
So one of the things, so we're gonna get into Okaru-Bisant and the root of our need to educate ourselves and everyone else about the true greatness of us as a people. Because if we know what we come from, then we have a frame of reference of greatness.
Absolutely.
We would not be rapping and singing about songs. I started from the gutter, now I'm here.
Come on now.
You didn't start from the gutter, you started from your mother's womb. Your mother's womb is not the gutter, right? But so we've associated ourselves so much, and that is where we're going to transition the conversation to Dr. Butler. Dr. Rhonda, because we want Dr. Rhonda to talk about the emergency level 2 trauma center that they're developing that we're developing in the District of Columbia, and how trauma from slavery, we're going to bring it all the way up to right now and what we're doing about it. So this is solution oriented. So let's get into Okaru-Bisant. I just wanted to set the stage. Please, I see some folks in the chat, so we'll be, engaging that, but we want to make sure that folks are tuning in. Make sure you're liking us, giving us the heart, share this show, because the information that you're going to get is going to allow you to educate yourself, how you can educate your family. So if you want to know about real ancient Black history, you'll be able to learn how we provide that each and every month. And then how you can help relieve and stop the trauma and the violence and the homicide and the rape and molestation and all those negative things that are transpiring in our community is rooted in trauma. So with that being said, Okaru-Bisant, Queen, take us through how Okaru-Bisant started Amaka.
Well, do you want me to go all the way back? I can go all the way back.
Go all the way. Go. Take it to the root.
Take it to the root. Take it to the root. Okay. So in reality, this has been something that has probably been broiling for maybe, I would say, the last 30 years, and not starting with me, but it was a seed that was definitely planted. The need for Saturday school, especially in the area where we are, where the demographic for African Americans is about 25%. And in the schools, we knew there's been an ongoing problem with the information that is being taught to our students, not really teaching the full history. Just like you mentioned, students on the continent of Africa not being taught their full history. Students here, we knew, were not being taught their full history. Started with slavery, which is not where our people started. And the desire or the need to fill in that historically appropriate information, because we knew the system of schooling wasn't provided, have been an ongoing discussion for, over the course of the years. So I will fast forward a little because we don't have a whole lot of time. But I'll fast forward. There were efforts made to get something started pre-pandemic. It didn't work very well. There were some roadblocks to it actually getting launched off the ground, but we came together as a coalition of people who were certainly concerned about two major issues, just about as the pandemic was really catching hold. And one of the issues that was part of that Saturday discussion was education. So again, that idea came up. We need to make this information more widely available to our students and even to adults, because a lot of adults didn't have access to that information because these were the children that went through that same school system that was depriving them of the information. And only if you went out of your way were you able to have access to it or find out more information. So we wanted to take the opportunity, and given that COVID had kind of made Zoom something that was more accessible to people, students were getting Google Chromebooks, things were opening up in general. we were able to launch Al-Kebulan Shule, our first Saturday school session during the pandemic. We utilized technology and we did Zoom formatting for our Saturday school sessions. And ever since then, we've been on this journey of trying to fill in the gaps, give that pre-colonization history, provide that information about what our people were doing before the Europeans came and changed the course of what the truth was, and lay that groundwork so it's more accessible to people. So I gave you the shortened version.
No, I appreciate it. I think, right now there's a whole conversation about the audacity of people here to attack critical race theory, which is basically telling the truth about what transpired in America. They want to keep it, that's what's happening. So the Europeans who massacred all over Africa, took the natural resources, the human resources in those countries. And the same thing happened here, Africa and throughout the Caribbean, South America as well, where we were enslaved. And they don't want to have that history taught. So you're a teacher in schools, how far off is what we're currently teaching versus what we should actually be learning in terms of just general history?
Now that's a question.
Anybody, Invisible Man, we have a teacher on board.
I just want to commend you for raising that question.
Yeah.
Please, ladies.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot that needs to be told. There's a lot that's, and I will just say if you're not one who goes beyond what's handed to you, then these are things you will never ever find out.
Very
these
well.
Things that you will not ever have the opportunity to be exposed to. And these are things that will literally change your life.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking for those of us who are hued. I'm also talking about those who lack the hue, because they need to know this as well.
Amen.
Yeah, I often say one of the greatest things about President Obama being president was the image.
Yeah.
Because the image of, and understand the power of image and the power of words. And when you think about that, the image of African Americans or people of color, when you see television, unfortunately, I use this example all the time, when there's a crime committed and it's committed by someone that's not of color, you don't see them right away. It takes about 3 or 4 days before they actually show if it's a white guy or some other race before you see him, in most cases, not always. But in the case of an African American, the same day, you could be a suspect. You don't even have to be the one that committed the crime. And they got you on camera. They could just, and they will put your face up in a minute. And so much so that, there's a group in Maryland that we belong to, formulated out of the caucus of African American leaders. And we should definitely give Carl Snowden some accolades for bringing that group together, where they actually went to Channel 13 in Baltimore, Channel 11 in Baltimore, the stations in the District of Columbia, the major newspapers, the Baltimore Sun, the Capitol, the Washington Post, I believe, and talk to them about their discriminatory practices in terms of how they cover the news. And in some cases, the stations actually apologized, and all of them agreed to do more to change the imagery that they were putting out there of Black people. And so, when you remember when OJ was in that trial, people were just happy that a Black man got off. it wasn't about OJ as much as it was just about the fact that there's so many times and instances where we've been accused, falsely accused. And so now let's talk about Al-Kabilan Shule and what it offers and who's been there. So it's a Saturday school. Al-Kabilan means, of course, continent. If you're just joining us, I'm Darius A. Stanton. We're here live on African Americans United on the Afrique Today channel. Invisible Man is our good partner and host here, as well as we have the two dynamic queens, Monica Lindsay from the Al-Kabilan Shule, and Dr. Rhonda Hamilton from the phenomenal group that is putting together DC Healthy and Me Leadership Coalition that is launching the Emergency Level 2 Trauma Center in the District of Columbia. So that's who our guests are. And we're talking about women here and abroad and the powerful things that they're doing in our community. So tell us about Al-Kabilan Shule. So how can people plug in? What are they going to see? And then talk a little bit about the circles.
All right, so Al-Kabilan Shule is a Saturday school. We meet the first Saturday of every month. And our format is that it's an opportunity for learning and growth. So we do have a website. The website is www.alkabilanshule.org. And yes, thank you very much. It's posted there. We are very, very pleased with the program that we can offer. We bill ourselves as a family rites of passage program. So we invite people from ages 8 to 108 because we feel like that this is important for all ages. We do love our youth. We honor our youth, and we know that our youth are the way, the path to the future. But we also realize that there are those of us who are, 30s, 40s, 50s, we even have 80 something, who we still need to learn, right? And we need to consume information that's going to help us grow stronger as a people. So we gather, as I said, the first Saturday of the month. And we take
tomorrow
for learning and growth.
Actually, we had our show. We had our class last Saturday, which was the first Saturday. Yeah, and the guests. If we will talk about the guests, actually, some of the guests that came on the show. It's from 10 to 12:30. But tell us about. We've had some of the illustrious guests and speakers that we've had at our classes, please.
We have been so blessed. We have been phenomenally blessed with the wealth of information that's been provided in the short amount of time that we've been a program. Amazing voices, we had our first speaker was Jacob Puka, whose background is from Sudan. And he talked to us about East Africa, and we got a little bit about his experience as a member of the Dinka tribe. Growing up in the cattle camps, and then ultimately some information about his experience once that war broke out that caused such trauma, and having to leave that area, ultimately coming to the United States as a lost boy of Sudan. He's now a grown man, no longer a lost boy, but we've also heard from people throughout the continent of Africa, greats like Tony Browder. He's been one of our guest speakers who talked to us about his gig in Egypt, talked about the Nile Valley, gave us some really good information and insight there. We had Renoko Rashidi, who talked to us about the presence of Africans throughout the diaspora, and just gave us a phenomenal lesson on our presence everywhere in the world, even places where when he went, years ago, people would say, oh, no, Black people have never been there. I don't know what Africans think. And he went and found that presence, right? That total undeniable evidence of our existence in these spaces.
If I could take you back real quick to Tony Browder, it was a few things that he said that I remember that was so poignant. One is that he said that the same dust in the sky has been found to be what our chemical makeup is from, right? Cobalt. So cobalt, there's a number of elements that make up who we are. And Tony Browder said that, we're basically made up of stardust, right? The other thing that he said that I thought was very profound was out of the 300 different digs that were taking place in Egypt, which is, of course, very much a part of the continent of Al-Kabilan, and those pyramids and those people. You see a lot of the noses were broken off. It was because the Europeans did not want people to know that it was Black people who were in this great position as kings and queens, and the legacies. But what he said was that in those tombs and the education that was taught, that we were a people of great faith, great spirit. And what kept us so strong was the families. It was family legacy, and so when you think about slavery and slavery dissecting the family, first of all, forcing families, second of all, raping and murdering our women and children and men, but then separating the family and taking the baby and selling it off, or selling off the mother, or selling off the father. And then modern day, you have jail and the prison industrial complex, where you have the father locked up, the mother locked up, and the son in juvenile or in a group home, right? So again, the destruction of the family. And so he talked about the legacy and the way they were able to build those pyramids with pyramids and all of that great science and archaeology and all the things, astrology, math, that we were able to do, which taught the Greeks. That's where they got, what they got from. And so, that was another profound, statement. And then foods and other things that we've also done with the classes. Last part, talk about
classes and learning about the cuisine from different countries, different regions, and even down to the specificities of how you cut your plantain can indicate what area you're from. Which was a very entertaining and engaging lesson, that you can look at a cut and see that indicates something. We talked about the kola nut. So we've done a variety of things just to kind of engage ourselves, learn, connect, and experience is what our motto is, and that's exactly what we do. And we are happy to have more people join in as we go on this journey of learning, because there's so much to learn. We're just scratching the surface right now.
That's right. And we, as we wrap and we get ready to transition over to our sister,
awesome.
Dr. Hamilton, I want to just make sure people know alkabilanshule.com. You can see it in the chat. .org. Right, .org. And so we want to make sure you can log on there and see all about, the various parts of the organization, how you can join, how you can volunteer, how you can contribute and donate to this effort, as well as the circles. So we also have circles inside of the organization.
I would love to share some real quick information, because that is our pride and joy is our circles, because our circles look at the 7 areas of an individual. And, you all are talking about mental health. This is where these pieces come together. There's 7 parts of an individual that need to be fulfilled. There's the spiritual, the physical, the financial, cultural, social, intellectual, as well as emotional. And our circles deal specifically with these 7 areas of the individual. And we have a phenomenal researcher who put together this very extensive survey, which gives you your health in these areas, these 7
holistic health. That's right. Every aspect, your financial health, your social health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. And that way you can actually see where you are.
Absolutely. And then you get a report back which can help you build your health. So the report will tell you specifically what areas you're weaker in. And then you can target those specific areas with our circles to better develop yourself in those areas and then be healthier all around as a whole. So that's something that we're really, really excited and proud and happy to offer our Shule family as we work towards building better health overall and making sure that 7 areas are well.
So before I transition, and I want to use the opportunity to invite our good sister, Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, to come to our emotional intelligence circle and share with our group what it is that you're doing in the District of Columbia. So we want to put that invitation out there. Can I get a second on that, Queen?
You got a second here. You're here.
That's right. You got to check with the queens. You know. I'm in the midst of celebrating my 25th anniversary with my wife Erica, and so I know you check with the queen.
Absolutely. That's the way to a healthy and long relationship, as you attest to.
But before I do that, I want to give the Invisible Man an opportunity to touch base with Queen Amaka before we shift to the Emergency 2 Trauma Center, Level 2 Trauma Center, and Dr. Rhonda Hamilton and the work that she's doing or we're doing to build that out.
Thank you.
My
question is, I'm looking at your website. So the event that's scheduled for the 10th, which is tomorrow, will you be meeting tomorrow?
Actually, we are not meeting tomorrow.
Okay, that's what I thought, because you just mentioned.
We do need to change that.
Okay, and you were describing all of the fun that you had when you did meet.
Say again?
I said you were describing all of the fun that you had when you did meet. And the 2 people that you mentioned, I'm actually I wish I had been there. Dr. Rashidi is a person that is really worth hearing.
Absolutely.
And yes, so, and Mr. Browder, yes.
Yes.
There are people that I respect, even though I'm invisible, but this is the thing. Can you tell us the exact meaning of this word? And I don't want to mispronounce it, but I'm going to try to pronounce it. It's Kebulon Shule?
Yes, so Kebulon is the first known name of the continent of Africa pre the European label by Leo Africanus. So Kebulon really means mother of mankind would be the translation. And that's a term that was used for the continent pre its label of Africa. So we're encouraging a return to knowledge about that. So hence, when we were looking at the name, it's a name for our rites of passage program, our family rites of passage program. We thought it would be, appropriate to use the name that the continent was given before the Europeans arrived. And Shule is a Kiswahili word for school.
Well, that's what I was going to. That was my next question, what language? And you already answered it. It is Swahili. I thought so. Yes,
it's Kiswahili. The language is Kiswahili. The people are Swahili. We learned about that in one of our classes. We were discussing East Africa, and oftentimes people say Swahili language, but the people who speak Swahili say Swahili is not a language. Swahili is a people. Kiswahili is the actual language.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to transition to our queen.
Thank you so much.
No question. Thank you so much. So Queen Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your leadership. I want to get right in. Everybody, I don't have to set the stage with regard to what DC at one point was known as the murder capital of the world.
Excuse me. It's still the murder capital of the world.
Come on now.
With the people that's coming from Afghanistan, the people they've been sending all over the world killing people. You talking about they looking at us as being killers, but let's look at the real killers, not us. Come on, talk to me. It's still a murder capital. Mm-hmm. It's not us.
As you can see, the invisible man is not seen but heard. There's no question. We talked about that today. I'm also the host of the Peace in the Morning show, which broadcasts on Friday mornings at 9 a.m. And we talked about that today, as a matter of fact. We talked about the fact that where's the peace, where's the love? Mm-hmm. And how can people be so brutal? Mm-hmm. In, the budget was between $760 and $940 billion for the military. So think about that much money. And so, you say you put your money where your mouth is. Mm-hmm. So, and speaking of which, so the trauma that you see that is hurled, there was some votes on the United Nations floor that was huge this past week, where the majority of the nations, addressed racism and voted to stop racism and to come together. And the United States and Israel and a number of other countries decided to vote against it. Mm-hmm. Right. But to that point, we are about solutions. So Dr. Hamilton, really give us what you're doing to address the trauma and how people can help you. So let's focus on that while we have about 10 minutes left on the show.
Certainly. And I'm going to keep it right where you have it. And first and foremost, thank you very much for having me. I will say to you that you are right where we need to be, which is the disconnect. We are you ask how can folks be so cruel, and where's the peace and where's the love? Well, the truth of the matter is that we become empowered when we're educated. And there's such a in my opinion, I have to say, there's such a disconnect with our folk in terms of their history. I think that the work you guys are doing is wonderful. Part of the reason why our coalition came together to form the Healthy DC and Me Leadership Coalition was because we saw the great need. We saw the gap, as you did, in the educational component. We saw that our folks that were challenged with mental health, not just diagnosis, but exposures. And I say that because when you guys talk about your circles, I got so excited. I said, God is always working. SAMHSA did wonderful research, the 8 dimensions of wellness. And again, circles. And the one dimension that I would say that is absent from what you guys have mentioned for us in the mental health arena is the environmental component. And in our communities, why that's so important is with this disconnect, with the bullets going off, with the horrendous amounts of abuse and self-medicating. All of it is the root of the trauma that we carry as a people. And uneducated people are unable to understand the ability to become empowered about their history. And many of us have been taught that our history started at slavery. And so there's so much work when you ask the question in terms of the schooling, what's missing and what they're teaching and what needs to be taught. The reality is that we saw the culmination of the loss of life for so many of our beautiful angels, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and others. We saw that the reality of us as a people being so disconnected from our history that even when something as serious as these public and national tragedies happen, we still go, we react for a moment and then we go right back to conformity because there is nothing else. And the truth of the matter is, as long as we stay disconnected, as long as our mental health continues to be something that we're secretive about or we're ashamed about, we're not able to come back and connect and to motivate our folks to get the knowledge. So the Trauma Center was born out of a need to create a center, a representation of bringing us back together in the commonality of our trauma. Because we all carry it, whether we've recognized it, identified it, or understand it. We trace our roots. There is an opportunity for us to understand that we've had the exposure. And why it was important to add the word exposure is because many of our communities and our households and our lower income situations are they're so distraught and they are disconnected. And people that don't know their history or don't care about their history don't generally care about anything else around them. That's what's been my observation. And so our trauma center was set to serve as a component to address all of this wonderful research and knowledge that's come before us. We learned that trauma happens in the womb, which is something that what Harvard's research supported. And then we understand that hurt people hurt people. We see violence escalating. We know that the pandemic has exposed the reality of the health inequities. And a lot of times when we talk about health inequities, being disconnected and not having that knowledge base, when you start talking about the components of social determinants and how that's impacting our folks in the community and keeping them down, education has to be at the center if we're ever going to overcome the gun violence and the, as you mentioned, where's the peace, where's the love? We've got to get back to coming together as a people. And as you mentioned, we come from kings and queens and lineage, and it's important that we portray that, and it's important that we get back to the excellence that we come from. And there are many families, many children in the communities that don't hear that word often enough. And so it's important that we get back to being the beacons of light. And so I applaud you, Queen, because just as we're excited about the trauma center mechanism and the need for it, I could sit here and spend many minutes and hours talking to you about the trauma that is occurring in our communities in the nation's capital. But the truth of the matter is this is happening across the nation in urban settings where we have this disconnect and where we have this divide. And so it is important that we continue to use our greatness and our excellence and put it on display so that our people will come back, because this is something that we as a people have to reconcile: our history, where we are now as a result of the pandemic, and where we're going, because our children are watching.
So let me ask you this: how can people support? You're going to actually build the cost of the facility. Tell us that, and tell us the programs and services that will be offered, and then lastly, tell us. I'll tell you what, if you wouldn't mind, start with how people can support and contribute and donate, because you have a major fundraising campaign. Then tell us about the actual programs and services, and then we're going to circle back one more time and share in our last 5 minutes what it is that you will be offering in terms of how people can reach and donate.
I love that question, Darius. Thank you. As you know, in our community, we start asking for money and folks start turning the other way. But the truth of the matter is, nothing that we're going to be able to accomplish of greatness is not going to require money. So yes, they can get involved by looking at our website. One of the ways they can donate and get more information about what we're doing, which is capitalcityemergency.org. Again, that's capital with the AL, cityemergency.org. And that website, we put a lot of work into making sure that the information was available for the questions that you just asked. In terms of cost, one of the things I want to clarify is that this will be a standalone emergency and trauma center. And the purpose of it, every city makeup has a need, obviously. And in our city, we're no different. We're divided by the Anacostia River, and east of the Anacostia River, we have a predominance of African-American families of low income means who are living and striving daily through the gun violence, through the abuse, through the mental health, the lack of resources. We currently have 4 level 1 trauma hospitals and ready to receive all levels of injuries west of the river. So what that means with all the gun violence going off east of the river is that they're dressing the wounds and preparing them and sending them across the the river, praying that they make it. And so the truth of the matter is we need everybody to care and get involved. We like for this to become the model that carries us across this nation. We understand the history of the Tulsa massacre and the Black Wall Street and all the accomplishments of our people, again, our history. It's important that we come forward and start to create institutions to help to reverse the inequities that are present. And so capitalcityemergency.org is hopefully going to lay out for you all of the wonderful information of why you should get involved. We have 12 levels of giving, Darius, of course, you know. So there's a donate now page, but the 12 levels of giving allow us to be able to break this down to every level. Obviously, to build a trauma center, you asked what the costs look like. We're averaging about 19 million annually, and that's very doable considering what we're spending otherwise. You just mentioned the budget about the military. Well, if we're spending that much on war and being prepared for war, then how much should we spend for the folks that return from war, with all of the atrocities and tragedies that they will have? And many folks that know the history of mental health, you will understand that it was born on or embedded in us coming from war and the reality of trying to help our soldiers realize that they weren't as bad off as they were. And so you know the damage that that's done down through time. So the reality is that the capitalcityemergency.org is a trauma, emergency, and wellness center that will also house a wonderful outreach community hub of resourcing, programming, seminars, educational abilities. You mentioned your wonderful, I'm going to tackle this word here and see if I do it justice, your wonderful Alkebulan Chule. I would love to be able to host other wonderful cutting edge programs such as this on site, because we need to be able to have representations of our greatness in our communities and across this nation.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much, Invisible Man. You get the last question because our time is pretty much up. Dr. Hamilton, thank you for joining us. Our guest earlier was the Queen Amaka from Alkebulan Chule, which you can see in the chat. So please, share, push this show out. You'll get a chance to see it. It'll be here. Invisible Man, it's on you.
Yeah, I have only one question. Can we bring her back next week? And that way we can have a much longer time to find out the wonderful thing that needs to be done, because if we don't think right, we can't act right.
Come on now. Love
and look,
that.
And you can't even see him, and he pushing it out there.
So,
love that.
All right, well, we're going to work on that, Queen. Are you able to come back next week?
Absolutely. We're on a 6-month fundraising campaign. I'm going to be everywhere I need to be to reach my folk. Absolutely, I'll be back. Thank you.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, there you have it. So we want to thank our executive producer and the sister Queen that's overseas right now or in travel to Ghana, Dr. Yvette Butler Iboa, and the African American United. Thank you, our good brother, the Invisible Man. We thank Afrique Today for the wonderful production that they do on this broadcast and the multiple platforms that they are in. So please support Afrique Today. And thank you for allowing me to be your host. It was truly an honor and a pleasure. My name is Darius A. Stanton. And remember to be bold for good. Be bold for good. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a wonderful evening, kings and queens. Peace and love.